Have you ever met someone who, at first glance, seemed perfectly fine? They spoke kindly, smiled politely, said all the right things. But something inside you tightened. Your instincts whispered, "Something is off. What's really happening here?" It's not about what they did or said. It's about a subtle dissonance between their polished surface and something deeper, something they themselves may not even be aware of. Carl Jung called this a rupture in psychic congruence. It happens when a person becomes disconnected from their inner world, when their outward behavior is no longer aligned with their authentic self. The danger? It's not intentional harm, it's unconscious influence. And your body feels it, even when your mind can't explain it. This video is an invitation, a mirror held up to your psyche. We'll explore why the most unsettling people are often the ones who appear perfect. What Jung's concept of the shadow reveals about the parts of ourselves we don't see. How we fall into repeating painful emotional patterns again and again without knowing why. And most importantly, how to stop being unconsciously controlled by the parts of ourselves we refuse to face. This isn't a video about blaming others. It's about reclaiming your power by understanding yourself on a deeper level. If you've ever thought, "Why do I always attract the same kind of person? Why do I feel triggered by things that seem small? Why do I keep repeating the same emotional story?" Then this video is for you. Like this video if something here resonates with you. Share it with someone who may be caught in a loop they can't yet see. And subscribe for more insights from the Jungian journey into the unconscious, because transformation begins not with light, but with the courage to face the dark. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to look. Let's begin. Let's begin with a question that might seem simple, but isn't. Have you ever been in a conversation where the words felt fine, but something underneath felt wrong? They compliment you. They nod in agreement. They're perfectly composed. But deep down, your body recoils. You walk away feeling drained, confused, or slightly off balance. This isn't paranoia. This is perception. Carl Jung believed that our unconscious picks up on what the conscious mind cannot yet articulate. When a person is out of touch with their inner world, when they deny their own fear, anger, envy, or need for control, those denied parts don't disappear. They are projected, often, onto you. This is not just a psychological theory, it's a lived reality. You might start noticing that you're being misread. You're being accused of motives you don't hold. You feel like you're being seen not for who you are, but for who they need you to be in order to avoid facing their own darkness. It's called shadow projection, and it's one of the most insidious forces in human relationships. But here's the truth that's harder to accept. We don't just suffer from other people's projections, we project too. Every time you judge someone too quickly, dismiss a part of them as bad, or feel irrational anger that seems bigger than the situation, ask yourself, what part of me am I refusing to see? This is the beginning of integration. This is the beginning of freedom. When we become aware of our own shadow, we no longer need to defend a perfect image. We stop assigning blame externally and start asking better questions internally. This process is not about shame, it's about growth. Because when you see yourself clearly, you stop being dangerous to others. And more importantly, you stop being dangerous to yourself. If you're still watching, that means something in you is awake. Stay with it. This isn't the end. This is just the first step. Let us know in the comments what part of this struck a chord with you. What patterns are you starting to see more clearly? Your insight might be the mirror someone else needs. And if this message moved you, share it. Not just because it helps the channel, but because someone you love might still be living inside a story they don't even realize they're repeating. Subscribe to continue this journey, because the deeper you go inward, the clearer everything outside becomes. Next, we'll look at the hidden trap of spiritual ego and why the most enlightened person in the room might be the most lost. You won't want to miss it. Let's talk about something that's as seductive as it is dangerous: the spiritual ego. You've likely met someone like this, or perhaps, at times, you've caught glimpses of it in yourself. They speak in absolutes. They quote scripture, philosophy, or psychology with ease. They seem calm, wise, composed. They say things like, "I've transcended that," or "That's just your ego talking." And yet, you feel a tension, a quiet rigidity, a need to dominate the emotional space, not through aggression, but through spiritual authority. Carl Jung warned us of this exact danger. He called it inflation, a psychic state in which the ego fuses with an archetype, often the savior, the seer, the teacher, or the judge. The person no longer sees themselves as human. They see themselves as a channel of truth, of higher wisdom. And that might sound inspiring until you realize they've lost the capacity to be wrong. They don't question themselves, because to them, their voice is truth. Disagreeing with them doesn't feel like a debate. It feels like blasphemy. This is not wisdom. This is possession. The spiritual ego is far more dangerous than ordinary arrogance because it wears the mask of light. And those drawn to it, seeking clarity in a chaotic world, may not see the shadow underneath until it's too late. So how do you recognize it? They can't tolerate contradiction. They don't apologize. They reframe. They use humility as performance, not practice. And perhaps most telling, they speak more about others' unconscious than their own. Jung reminded us that true transformation isn't loud, it's not flashy. It's marked by a kind of grounded humility, a willingness to admit, "I don't know," a quiet strength that doesn't need to be seen because it has nothing to prove. And now the most important part: what in you feels the need to be seen as above others? What happens when someone challenges your image of yourself? Do you listen, or do you reframe, spiritualize, or withdraw? This isn't about judgment, it's about honesty. Because the more you see through your own ego's disguises, the less power they have over you, and the safer you become, not just for others, but for the truth itself. If this resonates, comment below. Have you ever seen this pattern, in others or in yourself? Let's be real, let's be brave, let's be accountable. And if you know someone who's been caught in the illusion of perfection or authority, gently share this video with them. Not to shame, but to open a door. And don't forget to subscribe, because the next part of our journey is perhaps the hardest and most important: how to recognize when you've become a stranger to yourself. The final mask, the persona. We'll see you there. Now let's talk about the mask we wear so well, even we forget it's there. The persona. This is the face we show the world, the version of ourselves that is polite, composed, appropriate. It says the right things, reacts the right way, and rarely, if ever, makes a scene. At work, it's the competent professional. At home, the responsible parent or partner. Online, it might be the inspiring leader or the enlightened soul. But here's the truth. The more perfect the persona, the more distant we are from our true self. Carl Jung warned us about this. He didn't say the persona was bad. We need it. It's how we function in society. But when we become only the persona, when we identify so completely with the mask that the real person fades, we begin to disappear from our own life. Have you ever spoken to someone who seemed flawless, calm, agreeable, and yet you walked away feeling nothing? Or worse, you felt drained, like something inauthentic had just touched you. That's what it feels like to meet a persona without a person behind it. There's no vulnerability, no contradiction, no emotional texture. Just a performance, a seamless act. and over time, that act becomes the only identity they know. Jung called this psychological self-betrayal. It often starts in childhood, when being authentic brought disapproval, but being good brought praise. So we learned to adapt, and then we forgot who we were before we started performing. But here's the cost. When we hide everything unacceptable, we don't just lose our edge, we lose our depth. We lose the parts of us that make us human, imperfect, alive, real. So how do you know if you, or someone you love, is trapped in the persona? They avoid personal topics. They're agreeable to a fault. They never seem to feel deeply or reveal vulnerability. Their words are smooth, but their presence is sterile. You walk away from them feeling more alone, not more connected. And maybe hardest of all, they don't do this to deceive. They do it because somewhere along the line, they stopped feeling safe enough to be themselves. The way forward. Not through dismantling the persona, but by reconnecting with what's behind it. Ask yourself, what part of me have I hidden to be accepted? When was the last time I said what I truly felt, not what I thought I should feel? What would it mean to show up without a script? And most of all, pay attention to how people feel around you. Do they feel seen? Do they feel safe to be real? Or do they feel like they're performing too, just to match your perfection? The goal is not to be liked by everyone. The goal is to be real enough to be truly known. If this touched something inside you, comment below. Have you lost yourself behind a persona? What would it take to come back? And if you feel someone in your life is living from behind a mask, share this video with compassion. You never know what permission that one message might offer them. Subscribe, because in our final chapter, we'll go even deeper. What happens when the shadow, the mask, the inflation all collide? When the psyche tries to maintain the illusion for too long and begins to crack? We'll explore the collapse of the false self and the freedom on the other side. See you there. Now we arrive at the turning point, the moment when the weight of the mask, the shadow, and the inflated identity becomes too much to bear. The collapse. At first, it doesn't look dramatic. It may start with fatigue you can't explain, a sense of disconnection, a growing numbness. Your achievements no longer feel meaningful. Your relationships start to feel shallow. You look in the mirror and something's missing. You don't recognize yourself. Carl Jung understood this not as failure, but as an initiation. He called it the beginning of the individuation process, the journey from a false self toward wholeness. But to get there, something must fall apart. The polished image, the inflated ego, the persona you've used to survive. They begin to crack, not because you did something wrong, but because something deeper in you wants to come alive. This breakdown is terrifying, because everything you thought you were is suddenly in question. But it's also a gift. It's your soul demanding your attention. In Jungian terms, this collapse is not destruction. It is deconstruction of everything that no longer serves your truth. And in the ruins of the mask, you begin to find your face. In the rubble of certainty, you discover the strength to say, I don't know who I am anymore, but I want to find out. This is the beginning of real transformation. So if you are in this moment, feeling lost, confused, broken, know this, you are not falling apart. You are falling through into something more honest, more human, more you. And yes, it hurts. But the pain is not punishment. It is the price of waking up. And what comes after? That's where the real power lives. The power of someone who has seen their own darkness and chosen to stay. The clarity of someone who no longer needs to project, impress, or pretend. The quiet strength of someone who is no longer afraid of being real. This is not the end of your story. It's the place where your true story begins. So let me ask you, what part of you is trying to break free? What truth have you silenced in order to be accepted. And what would it mean to start living from that truth today? If you are in the midst of collapse, comment below. What are you letting go of? What are you starting to see? And if someone in your life is cracking under the pressure of perfection, send them this video. Let it be the permission they didn't know they needed. Subscribe for more reflections like this, because this journey doesn't end at collapse. It begins with integration, with learning how to live as a whole person in a fractured world. And that's what we'll explore next. The path to wholeness, the practice of integrating the shadow, healing the inner child, and living from the core, not the costume. We'll meet you there. So, what does it really mean to integrate the self? It's not about fixing your flaws. It's not about becoming the best version of yourself. And it's definitely not about being good all the time. Integration, as Carl Jung taught, is about becoming whole. That means welcoming back every part of you you've exiled, the anger you were taught to suppress, the sadness you pretended not to feel, the dreams you abandoned to fit in, the fears you've hidden even from yourself. Most people spend their lives running from these parts. But here's the truth. Whatever you don't own, owns you. The anger becomes projection. The sadness becomes withdrawal. The fear becomes control. And the shadow, it becomes your fate. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." So the work of integration is the work of truth, not loud truth, not heroic truth, but quiet, honest, relentless truth. It's asking, what part of me do I judge the most, and why? Who triggers me, and what does that say about what I've buried? Where do I still live as a reaction, not a choice? This is not an overnight transformation. It's not a weekend retreat or a single book. It's a lifelong practice of looking in the mirror and saying, "This too is me." And over time, something begins to shift. You stop needing to prove yourself. You stop chasing people who don't see you. You stop fearing your emotions. Because you've made peace with the parts of you that used to terrify you. You become steady, not because life is easy, but because you're no longer at war with yourself. And you become safe. Safe for others. Safe for truth. Safe for love. Because nothing is more magnetic than someone who is real. Someone who has faced themselves fully and doesn't flinch. So if you're ready to do the work, not the performance, not the pretending, but the actual work of becoming whole, you're not alone. Comment below, what shadow are you learning to face? What part of you is finally asking to come home? Share this with someone who's ready to stop running. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because in the next video, we'll go even deeper. We'll explore how real integration not only transforms your inner world, but changes every relationship you have. From unconscious dynamics to conscious connection, this isn't just about psychology, it's about liberation. Let's walk that path, together. So now you know, the danger is not in darkness, it's in what we refuse to see. Not in others, but in ourselves. The most harmful people are not those who carry shadow. It's those who deny it, who polish the mask so clean, even they forget it's not their face. But you have a choice. You can keep performing, chasing acceptance, hiding your flaws, projecting your pain. Or you can turn inward, face what hurts, and begin the quiet, messy, powerful work of becoming whole. Not perfect, whole. Carl Jung didn't promise that the path would be easy, but he knew it's the only path worth walking. And if you've made it this far, you're already on it. So keep going. Keep asking the harder question. Keep softening where you once defended. Keep standing still where you used to run. Because every time you choose truth over image, reflection over reaction, self-awareness over blame, you not only free yourself, you make the world a little safer for everyone else too. If this journey speaks to something in you, Let us know in the comments. What truth are you walking toward now? And if you think someone you care about needs to hear this, share it. It could be the lifeline they didn't know they needed. Subscribe, because we're not done. There is more to uncover, more to unlearn, and more to become. This is your mirror, and on the other side of it is freedom. Let's keep going, together.